Hey everyone, and welcome to Breakout Homestead. I'm Josh, that's Caleb, and today we're breaking down the top 10 players for Nebraska football in Matt Rhule's second season. Nebraska's gunning for a breakout year, of course, and we have some exciting players to talk about, to say the least, this year. And we're going to also be going over the biggest breakout players, kind of those younger guys, those unknown players that you may never have heard the name of before, that could literally come out and be the next Wan'Dale Robinson, the breakout star that leads Nebraska as a freshman, or a Cam Taylor-Britt, who you've never heard of and makes that big leap. So we're talking about that today. And also weaving in the depth chart. The depth chart came out this week. So we'll be going over all of that as well throughout the video. It's going to be a fun one. Caleb, how you doing?
Man, I cannot wait. Give me to football.
It's game week.
It's game week. And the days get closer
time.
And my patience it's been expired for a few weeks now. We've been feeding ourselves with Austin P and La Tech highlights, just giving ourselves any juice that we can. I just can't wait to watch some hits live. I just cannot wait. So, give me the football.
Oh, I know. We're going to be going through one by one our top 10 players and breakouts. And so without further ado, Caleb, I want to hear who you got at number 10. So how we'll be doing it is, when you reveal one, I'll reveal if I have them on my list, and we'll talk about where we have them. So we'll kind of go player by player.
Well, at number 10, I got Jamari Butler at defensive line. A guy that's been hyped a lot on the Chasey 3 videos, as you've seen. A guy that's been noted as a leader. Last year, he had 5.5 sacks. I'm really hoping that number can go up. The defensive line, we can get to the quarterback more. That's something I'm hoping for. And I'm hoping Jamari Butler can make one more leap to be one of those top 10 players for me. I think it's needed. It's necessary for our team to find the sacks somewhere. And
sure.
I think he could be one of the main players in that.
How I see with Butler, it's like he's a really safe pick. I didn't have him in my top 10, though. He's probably in like that 10 to like the 11 to 15 range, I would say. But to me, the upside's just the question. Like you said, you kind of have to assume the step up for him to elevate. Where there's other guys that are nipping out there to get to that next level. A spoiler alert, but Cameron Lenhart, who is my 10th player, is a guy who I genuinely think could take that literal next step up. Last year was his true freshman season, and I think he's poised to really break out here as that guy that could take the next step. So that's why I for sure wanted to have him in my top 10. You have him in your top 10?
I do as well. This is one of my guys for the year. Cam Lenhart last season just looked the part. Right away, especially early in the season, looked incredibly impressive at the defensive end spot, especially in the run stop. And again, some of that pass rush ability, he kind of waned as the season went on, and some other guys kind of took the reins. But I think this is a guy who is, like you said, poised to make a jump this season. I have him at number 4. I think he is going to be invaluable to the team. And I think this guy is the real deal. And as a true sophomore, I think he is going to be a menace in the Big Ten. I cannot wait. So
you see that's a legitimate ascension for you. Because that'd be a true sophomore season with him as one of the top 5 players in Nebraska. At that point, you're talking about like a junior year that could be like legitimately NFL player dominant. What makes you so confident he's going to just really ascend though? Like, I think he's going to be good. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, I have him at 10, but like to be top 4.
It's the flashes. It was definitely the flashes that I saw at moments. I think physically he's ready now. And in some ways he wasn't before. His body is just imposing. I think that another year under his belt and the amount of reps that he got, all the interviews, everything I hear with him, I think that he's just a super smart guy. And I think that he's come to play. I think Terrence Knight in year 2, coaching up some of these guys. I think death row is going to be a real thing. And especially those first few games, when I think about last season, I was like, wow, he looked nothing like a freshman in general. I know as the season went on and we got to tougher opponents, it kind of went away. But I think that this year, again, with another year under his belt, I think he can be consistently dominant.
Man, that's bold for sure. I did not see that.
That's my hot take.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
I'll start out with my hot take.
Yeah, it's good. I have a hot take coming. No, I wouldn't say it's not nearly as hot. But that's bold for sure. All right, so then give us your number 9 player here.
I got another tried and true guy in Marcus Buford. Switching to corner, but I still think a top 10 player on our team. Again, who's a guy who's been a utility knife for us, who's played different spots. I'm so excited to see what he can do as a physical corner. I think he fits the Big Ten mold in a great way. And I also think just to have a guy that close to the line who, again, who's good at blitzing the quarterback, who's good at stopping the run, I think is going to be really invaluable for the team and the defense. We need somebody close to the line of scrimmage that can upset those bubble screens and upset those outside run plays, who you can really just trust to be the second line of defense as a tackle, and he can make great reads to be a first line of defense. And I think if he can be a full season guy for this year, I think that Marquez Buford has a really solid season ahead for us.
Yeah, obviously for me, the change to corner is the question here. If he was starting at safety, I think I probably would have him at 10 or 9, somewhere right around here. But the new position just makes me a little bit worried that there could be some growing pains there. And overall, though, I'm absolutely confident he's going to lay the wood and hit hard and fly around the field when he can. But corner just restricts you obviously a lot more than at safety. So we haven't seen exactly where he's at with his coverage skills, especially in man. And so that's just why I'm a little bit more hesitant for Buford in the top 10 right now. But if you tell me at the end of the year he's like top 6, he has the upside and the physical ability and the experience to be there. So I wouldn't be surprised by any means, to say the least. So that's a fun one. I like that one a lot, actually. So, I mean, at my number 9 spot then, this was a tough one. There's a lot of guys in this 9 and 10 range that were like really close. I think, it's a pretty big tier here of guys. But I wanted to go towards the running back position here. And I really do love the talent of Emmett Johnson. And I think that this year, I was really surprised to see that he didn't ascend to be the clear number 1 on the depth chart. I mean, he was listed as a co-starter essentially with Gabe Ervin and Ramir Johnson. But we saw the smoothness, the well-rounded ability already of Emmett last year. And so in my opinion, in the spring game, he looked great. And like, there's not ever been a reason to doubt his abilities. He showed it on the field right in a desperate situation last year, came in and immediately looked good. And so for me, it's like, why wouldn't he take the next step up this year and legitimately be the starter for this team as a veteran now in the backfield? So I think his first step ability, his ability to keep his feet moving, his lateral movement's decent, I think, and his top end speed is also really competitive, and he can catch the ball. We saw him as a really good pass protector last year as well. So for me, Emmett Johnson is just a really, really well-rounded player who's deserving of, top 10 type of status for Nebraska.
Yeah, my worry, I didn't put a running back in the top 10. I'm still curious on what Matt Rule is doing with with giving all 4 of them an or. I wonder if it's to keep them around so they don't enter the portal if they name somebody else a starter. And so I think it could be Emmett. But also, I think that there is a lot of different talent. I'm excited to see what Gabe and maybe not as much Ramir, but what Gabe and Dante Dowdle.
Yeah, we kind of know who Ramir is.
And Dante Dowdle have. And so I think that because they're worried about injuries and because that's been such a thing, I still think Emmett can establish himself. We've obviously seen that he was able to handle the physical nature of Big Ten play as a freshman, which is really impressive and can really bode well for him to make a big breakout. And I think that he's definitely poised for it. If he comes out and is really the starter in week 1, I do think that and then he's definitely a breakout. And I was remiss to not put him on my list, but I still think that maybe some of those guys have some other juice where I think it could be more of a committee year.
That's fair. A little bit more burst, I think, like a little bit more muscle there. And I think you make him a really dangerous runner. I love the potential here this season. So, all right, who you got next?
Steven Thompson, a guy wasn't even starting on the depth chart.
Wow.
But I think one of the most valuable players that we got in the transfer portal this last season. You talk about Mazuka.
So this is almost a breakout pick.
And then, I think this guy is way too experienced to not be seeing the field a lot. I think this is a guy that by the end of the season is starting and doing a lot of great things for us. Again, he's the most experienced defensive player on the 3-3-5. This is a guy that's played in Syracuse and again was one of their best players, if not their best player on the entire field for them. He's going to handle this really well. I'm excited to see what he's got in the tank at Nebraska. And I think that, again, a linebacker spot was a place where it's easily thin. And I still think that, again, he can rise to the cream of the crop. So I'm excited to see what Thompson's got. And again, some of his film from those earlier seasons, I really think that he's something that Nebraska needs. And I think he's going to earn the trust by the end of the season to really be one of our best linebackers.
Man. I mean, obviously, that's the debate here is like, can you find a spot for him? It's tough. I can see it. I'm a little bit worried about how normally the coach speak is telling and they have been cool on Stephen Thompson. They haven't been hyping him up like you'd like to see with, the talk that we've seen from some of the other guys we're going to talk about later in this video. The talk's been there where it hasn't been there for Stephen. So that's where my worry comes in here is like, okay, maybe there's a little bit less here than we wanted there to be.
I don't think that White brings a guy in that he doesn't want. And so that's my thought too. It's like they don't just bring him in just willy-nilly because we need a backup guy. I think White likes this. You would bring in a guy that you like.
Well, again, I was with you. I love the film early in his career. So if he has shed some of that weight, then suddenly we're talking about a guy who we could both be really excited about. But I want to see it first before I'm willing to claim he's top 10. That's kind of how I see it. Talk about a guy who I did love seeing last year. And this is basically the same narrative for Cam Lenhart. But I got Princewell Umanmielen here at number 8. Yes, he was not listed, a similar situation, not listed as the starter at first. MJ Sherman was. But let's be honest here. It's
hard to think.
How in the world could you look at those two players and say Princewell isn't the starter? So there must be something going on in the background. They have talked a little bit about Princewell's like other things going on. I've heard a few players talk about like the mental game needs to lock, like he just needs to lock in type thing. And so there is some sort of like mental game type of talk going on with Princewell. But on the field, it was clear. He was a menace. One of our highest rated players on PFF last year as a true freshman. Our most efficient pass rusher by far when it came to pressures per snap rushing. And he was also really solid in coverage as a true freshman with how big he is as well. How mobile he ended up being was impressive. As a jack, that's exactly what you want to see. Have the ability to drop back when you need to, give you different looks. And so for me, it's like it's only a matter of time until Princewell replaces Sherman as the full-time starter. And it might even happen this week. Like I wouldn't be surprised if he outsnaps Sherman in week 1, even though Sherman's the starter. But
I agree with you. We need him in that pass rush.
To me, there's no reason why Princewell won't break out.
He was so athletic to me. Again, him and Cam were the most impressive freshmen besides, like an Emmett and Jalen Lloyd. So and he might be on a different level. Again, his brother, who was just an amazing pass rusher, dominant at Florida. And, Princewell, again, the tape was so nice. I agree with you. I don't have him in my top 10 just because I'm worried about, I guess, the other stuff. And, MJ Sherman still has a chance in my mind. I guess
he's a veteran.
Exactly.
They've hyped Sherman a lot, and he's a leader.
Yeah, exactly. And Sherman had a lot of room to grow too, I think. So, but I agree with you. Princewell, physically, there's not a much better player on the team. He looked exactly like an NFL caliber player as a freshman last year. And the trajectory seems high for Princewell.
16 hurries, 5 sacks. That's so solid.
Yeah, especially again,
freshman, and a 75 coverage grade. That's really respectable for a guy his size. 6'5",
again,
245.
Just so athletic into coverage.
Insane.
And just a monster, fast. Which is everything you want for a defensive end. He reminds me of, he could be a Randy Gregory by year 3, That's
what I'm saying. Like, in my opinion, there's a chance where when we do the cornies at the end of the year, like he could be one of the best players on this team. If not the best. There's a world where he could be the best. So
I agree with you.
Who do you got next?
Hope we can get it figured out. I got Isaac Gifford next. Just a super solid guy.
Little low.
Yeah. A little low. I guess, I don't know. For me, I think there's just some people in the defense that I think it can ascend ahead of him. I think he's super solid. We need him with the rover spot. He fits. He's a great leader. We saw he's a real vocal leader for the defense. I just think ceiling wise, there's some other guys that have a little bit more. But
I can see what you're saying. From there's like an athletic barrier maybe where his athleticism is definitely his barrier. When he's still got enough,
yeah.
Well, sure. But like I know what you mean. Like, is he an NFL body? Probably not. And that's the difference here. And so I get what you're saying. But at the same time, it's like when it comes to Nebraska's best players, he's the leader of the defense, literally lifeblood of that defense. And there's no reason to doubt how he plays. We saw it on the field now 2 years in a row. He's super solid and
especially
does everything right. So for me, I have him at number 3 because, to me, he's not going to hurt Nebraska, and he's going to help in a lot of ways, especially in coverage at the line of scrimmage. He does it all. He tackles well. He's respectable in coverage.
So good at tackling,
I would say, if anything, his weakness is maybe man coverage, where there's times where he's a little bit iffy. But around the line of scrimmage and as a rover, that's his goal, is to be the do-it-all player. And so for me, it's like he fills that role exactly the way in which we need him to. And so,
and maybe I'm underestimating another level because again, year 2, 3-3-5, the first few games, he definitely did look lost. And
so as a rover, the more free you can play.
Yeah, so I think there's some room for some upside for him. But just when I think about some of the other guys on the defense and some impact that they can make, again, I get a little bit more excited, but I don't disagree that he's clearly a top 10 player. Yeah, he was part of the 10 and somebody that I'm excited for.
Okay, so up next then, this is one of the guys where if you told me by the end of the year that this player would be the best player on the defense, I'd be like, okay, that makes sense considering we saw the flashes of it last year. And that is Deshaun Singleton. I mean, he does it all. Unbelievable tackler. And he covers the field. His speed's so impressive. And we saw the absolute ascension for Deshaun Singleton last year. The problem was he got hurt. And then we didn't get to see much of him for the rest of the year. I mean, obviously, he only played 245 snaps. And so he got hurt in the Michigan game. Yeah. And so, only saw him for 4 weeks last year. So that's why I'm a little bit hesitant to put him higher than 7. But man, like the potential is there for him to be.
It's exciting to have him back. It's really exciting. I have at number 6, so we're very close here.
Okay.
Again, a guy that's had 4.5 sacks, just super explosive. The dominant contact that they talk about, that Tony White just loves to harp on, Deshaun Singleton embodies that in a lot of ways. Again, just so excited to have him back there at safety. He's the guy. He's the enforcer out of the two. Malcolm Hartzog's going to be more of the ball hawk, and Deshaun Singleton's going to be happily playing a lot more around the line of scrimmage and causing and wreaking havoc. And I can't wait for it. I think he's a great player, and yeah, it wouldn't shock me if he's the best player on the defense by the end of the season. Again, because he's got that potential, and again, I just the way he plays football, especially on the defense, is just the right way, and I'm excited to watch him just put the hurt on some teams this year.
100%. Another guy, a fan favorite, and that's Nash Hutmacher here at number 6. Again, he's like a safe pick for me.
Safe, yeah.
I don't really foresee. I mean, again, some people love the polar bear and they see him as a top 3 player on Nebraska with Ty up there as well. For me, I'm a little bit lower on them than the average Husker fan. I think they ask a lot of the big D tackles up front, but it's a fairly straightforward job. You're supposed to stand up your dudes and just disrupt the pass rush or the running game. Essentially, you don't have to do as much in the pass rush. So, but at the same time,
he's great at it, and our defense doesn't run without it.
On those guys doing those things. That they do a great job. So you have to put them inside the top 6 here. The question for me is, again, athletic upside when it comes to rushing the passer. It's not as clear to me the path for him to be elite. And so that's why I have Nash here at number 6.
I agree with you. Again, he's so important to what the defense does. Again, them being so disruptive at the line of scrimmage to make the run game so tough for other teams allows us to do what we do more in the pass rush, allowing us to drop more guys back in coverage and really making the defense so suffocating. But for me, it's just I think Ty Robinson shows a little bit more. And so I had Ty at 3. I just think he's just got a little bit of the edge over Nash. But I think, again, they're both so great. Spoilers. I think Ty Robinson, I think Ty Robinson still has a chance to be an NFL guy, be a draft pick. I still think there's hope for him, especially on the size. And again, I just really liked what he did in the offseason, his body, how he looks. Again, he's just, you looked at the picture of the 10, he is bigger than everyone. And I'm excited to see his season and Nash's as well. But I think Ty Robinson still might have another level where he can be an NFL guy this year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you there with Ty if you want to hop there. I mean, I have him at number 5. So I basically agree with the arguments. It's just more about how I think some of the other more athletic skill position guys have a chance to level up to a bigger degree. We saw Ty be great. I don't foresee Ty being a top 2 round NFL draft pick where some of the other guys could potentially ascend to those types of levels. So that's where I'm with you there.
Well, I moved to the list, and now for the first time, I'm going to mention an offensive player, which again just shows how strong our defense
that's crazy.
Really is the strength of the team. But the offense has a lot of room to improve this season, and I'm very excited for especially compared to last year where we were just bottom of the barrel in all of football and scoring points. But I think a big reason why we will really be middling to very solid, if not better than top half, but top third, it would be because of Jamal Banks, who I have at number 5.
Oh.
the biggest transfer get that we got. For sure. The biggest transfer get. Mazuka was the other one, but I think Jamal Banks is just ahead. This is a guy who has had so much experience at the wide receiver position, has proved it that he can get 750 yards in multiple seasons, 10 plus touchdowns. This is a red zone target, a big body target, a sure-handed target for our freshman quarterback, something that we need. This is his go-to guy. This will be the go-to guy. There's a reason he's in the 10. And our offense, a lot of it starts with Jamal Banks, who is a menace. And I'm excited to see him moss UTEP a few times this coming Saturday.
I think Banks is primed to have a dominant season. And so for me, it's like, I talked about him in the season's predictions video.
He's so fit for the Big Ten.
I just think he's perfect for this system, exactly what we're trying to do. Spread the field, get downfield, have a freshman quarterback, go up and get it for a freshman quarterback. I mean, for me, it's like, I genuinely think he's going to be a stud. I mean, again, like last year at Wake Forest, 93.9 deep ball rating, 95.6 medium, 10 to 19 yard rating, and 91.2 0 to 9. It's like he was doing it all last year across the field.
Moving the sticks at every range.
Oh, yeah. It was insane. And so, like, overall, it's like there's not really a weakness in his game when it comes to what you ask him to do. And so, I mean, his only weakness has been behind the line of scrimmage. He's not really the shifty guy, but that's not what you're asking him to do. So it's like in this offense, he's going to fit perfectly. And in my opinion, he's going to be dominant and be one of those guys that he could have that breakout season that gets him into like the NFL draft talk. I mean, he has the body, the size, 6'4", 220. I mean, he is prime NFL body. And if he just has that explosive over the top season this year, watch out. And he has the personality as a leader and a servant to just be dominant. I mean, Rules talked about how he led the team in service hours throughout the year. I mean, he's just been an absolute leader. And Banks is a stud, man. I'm a huge fan. So I need to say where I have him. I have him at number 1.
Oh, baby.
Like, I genuinely think by the end of the year, Jamal Banks, we're going to walk away and say Jamal Banks was like one of the difference makers for this team, or the difference maker for this team. So I'm a huge fan. So who you got at number 2?
I'm at number 2, and that is Tommy Hill. That's not a surprise to anyone. A guy who, again, was the best defensive player on the team last year. The guy who could create the most plays, create turnovers, and just someone who talk about just beating the odds. Someone that I never thought could be a valuable player for Nebraska football. Just on he couldn't figure out if he was wide receiver or corner. A guy when he played corner for Scott Frost,
and they put him to wide receiver because he was that bad.
Because he was so bad when he entered for Scott Frost in cornerback. This is a guy who, again, who's continued to work so hard, especially despite bad performances. It's really inspiring when I think about it, to be honest. A guy who just didn't give up on his passion and dream, and again, it really flipped the script and difference for him. So
I mean, he
Tommy
had a
Hill,
91 grade versus Purdue and an 86.3 against Iowa. I mean, that's like NFL type of performances there. I mean, that's as good as he gets. And overall, an 85.9. That's one of the best in the entire country at cornerback coming back. So when it comes to talent, PFF agrees. Like you're right there with some of the best in the world. Or best in the country there with Tommy Hill. And so I'm with you. I have Tommy Hill at number 2. So I'm all in on Tommy Hill. So I agree. At number 4, I have my number 4. You have your number 1. So lead the way here. Who you got at number 1?
There's
you got at number 1?
There's a name I haven't mentioned. He's kind of exciting for Nebraska.
You may have heard of him.
Yeah, you may have heard of him once or twice. He was like a 5-star or something. I don't know if that's good at quarterback. But yes, that's Dylan Raiola. He's the number 1.
You're predicting it here.
He's the reason a lot of the defensive guys stayed. He's the reason why, this team is going to turn around this season. I mean, granted, everybody's hard work, but again, this starts with Dylan Raiola. You have a lot bigger belief when you have a quarterback that can win you games. It just gives you supreme confidence knowing that you're always in it. And that was not the case for our defense last year. Let's have a guy who you could get down 14 points and it just might not matter. And you can just keep playing your game because you can trust him. This is the difference maker in our game. This is the difference maker in our season. This is why pundits from around the country are talking about, watch out, Nebraska can make a dark horse playoff run. And that is all because of number 15, our own Patrick Mahomes here in Lincoln, Nebraska, Dylan Raiola. I cannot wait. I can't wait to watch him. He's yeah, he's him.
Obviously, I'm with you. I'm with you that he's going to be talented. I mean, I have him at number 4, so I see him as one of the best players on the team this year. It's just really difference for me is just that next year he'll be clearly the number 1, the best player on this team. I think this year there are going to be some games that are growing pains, some games that we're not entirely sure why he did that thing, and he's going to have a few mistakes here and there. And so for me, it's like, yes, when you look back on the entire season, maybe he could be the best player, but I feel more confident to for sure say that Banks, Tommy Hill, and Isaac Gifford are going to be anchors for this team, and then Dylan Raiola. So it's just kind of it's an ordering thing there. I have no problem with, obviously, with Raiola being number 1, but I like the call. It's the respect, it's the juice we want to see for Nebraska. And Raiola's, of course, got all of the intangibles and all of the physical attributes to be the best.
I just don't think college football's seen a player like him in a long time. I'm just pumped for it. Yeah, again, we've seen that he's been dominant in all ACC type player. Sure. For me, I think one person that's interesting, speaking of the depth chart, Janarin Bonner. I think he's super fascinating that he got the slot starting spot. He looked great in the spring game, but it was the spring game, and I wasn't really expecting him to really see the ball that much. I was surprised how much he caught the ball in the spring game, but for him to be, a slot guy who's catching the ball, and he's pretty young, he's a redshirt sophomore. And so there's a lot of gas there for me where it's like he could actually be really solid. He's a guy that's been moved around.
He's had a crazy career, exactly. Right? Yeah. He was recruited
tight end, the fullback.
He was originally a wide receiver in high school. Then got recruited as a tight end with Frost. And then Rule comes in like, nope, you're a fullback and a winger. And then this year it's like, nope, you're not. You're a wide receiver now. So you're right back to square one. And so clearly, like you said, they want to get him on the field in some way, but they haven't really figured that out yet. And so Rule seemed to be really optimistic, though, about Bonner and the damage that he could do in the slot. So to me, he's kind of a wild card.
Yeah.
And the fact that he was in the slot and not, Jalen Lloyd, maybe you could say that's a positive sign.
That's what I'm saying. It's so excited about him. And again, a guy that a bunch of coaches have tried to fit in a lot of different roles because they think he's good enough to be on the field, who clearly shows it in practice. So that makes me excited about him. If, maybe the slot's the perfect spot for him. And, he could be, again, he's a physical guy, a big dude who, could be great, inside of 10 yards, who could really be another efficient, big bodied person who can really be a great target for Dylan in this, right around the sticks.
Yeah, I'm interested to see if we tried to do some interesting stuff with him in motion and bring him in as a fullback in motion or a lead blocker and really try to utilize his abilities, or else maybe our plans to use him more like a Deebo Samuel and get him on the edges and use his size and physicality as an X factor.
Hand the ball off to him. He's big enough.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he was a fullback too, so he's got the size. Yeah. So to me, he's an interesting player and one of those utility players that I'm excited to see how he's used more than I am even necessarily about him as a breakout per se. But I am excited to see what he do. So kind of our fifth guy here, one that we definitely want to mention is Sierra Wright, coming in from USC. And Jalen Lloyd was talking about who's the most challenging corner to go up against. And he said Sierra Wright in his answer. And he said he's the hardest rep every single time. And coming from USC, like you said, to fill in after Bly Hill got hurt as one of those question marks. So what are your thoughts on Sierra and maybe his route to a breakout this year?
A spot that we need that has the most question marks. That's why Buford got moved to cornerback. We lost Newsome. We lost, Omar Brown. So we need some good cornerbacks. And I think that's something that we really had great veteran leaders in that spot last year and now don't. So I think Sierra Wright has a lot of room to grow. And it's really my worry for the team as well. So I'm really hoping for a breakout in this sense in that spot.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I'm not as excited about Sierra Wright. I think he's more likely to be a really, really solid depth piece. Like I'm showing on screen here, but he played 623 snaps as a true sophomore at USC and then kind of got benched halfway through the season and then got benched his junior year. So he's kind of had this weird road, but we've seen crazier things happen, obviously, with Tommy Hill and guys who are taking huge steps when they get into this defense. So there is physical potential here, and he's recruited like that to be a great player. So I can see the route. It's just going to be a little bit tough for me to see maybe the upside this season, especially considering he's currently a little bit behind on the depth chart. But that would be the question mark. So,
and Wright's a movie star, right?
Well, yeah, he played LeBron James' son in what the hell is that one?
Space Jam.
Space Jam. There you go.
Yeah, he's got his
Jam. So
that's
got
crazy. I mean, he's LeBron James' son. I mean, nothing could go wrong for Wright.
Okay, the final two here are, in my opinion, two of the most exciting because they're the true freshmen and they're guys you just want to the coaching staff cannot stop talking about them. So at number 3 here is the third best breakout. We got Vincent Shavers.
Ooh.
I mean, just talk about Vincent Shavers, man. He has gotten so much hype from the coaching staff.
It's been ridiculous this season how much they have really just talked about him throughout the year. John Bullock was listed ahead of him on the depth chart. But let's be honest, I think Vince Shavers has plenty of room to overtake him in that spot. Not that Bullock's not going to see playing time by any means, but sure. I think Vince Shavers, there's still great room for him to kind of win that spot over by the end of the season. And as a breakout, I think that's very possible. A lot of our guys are breakouts on the defensive side who we saw a lot of flash from them last year and, maybe in spots that weren't as dominant. And I think that Vince Shavers, again, just by how much the coaches have raved about him, at the same light, how, Bullock is a kind of one-dimensional linebacker who's so great at run stop, great at pass block, but not good in coverage. I think Shavers can be a little bit more and has a little bit more usage in other ways. And so I think that gets me excited about Vince Shavers, where I know he's going to have opportunities to see the field.
He looked great in the spring game. I mean, but like Dvorak, the linebackers coach, Rule, literally everyone's talked about how fast Shavers is, his explosiveness, his burst. And we saw that in the spring game, his ability to get sideline to sideline. And so I'm pumped to see him as kind of that switch up of pace guy versus Bullock, who's going to be kind of more that run stopper or gap fill in the middle of the field and zone, where Shavers might actually be able to get to the edge and the perimeter and make some tackles. And so I think UTEP might actually show off a little bit of Shavers in this game. So I think it's a great matchup because UTEP's going to want to get to the edges and Vince Shavers is going to have absolutely none of that. Exactly. So if we get to see him, especially in the second half, if we're up by a bit, keep your eye on Vince Shavers as a guy who makes some plays here early on. So, okay, number 1, if you've watched any Husker football this year, or any interview, this year, or any Matt Rule press conference, you know exactly who's at number 1 here. And that's Ja'Cory Barney Jr. If you watch the spring game, you know why Ja'Cory Barney Jr. is the number 1.
The punt return almost for a touchdown.
The touchdown catch from Harburg down the sideline. He is looking like he's the truth. He's showing it. And so, how excited are you about Ja'Cory Barney? Because I can barely keep it together.
It's exciting just because we know the wide receiver room has so much depth. So for him to be pulling away in this space where I feel like we have the most depth on the team is exciting, especially as a true freshman. You're a talent that must get on the field. You must be pretty special as a freshman. I know he's the backup punt returner as well behind IGC, but I'm excited to see him take that role.
It's usually a good sign when true freshmen are punt returners or kick returners.
Yeah, that means you're explosive and got a lot of good stuff going for you. Exactly. So that's what I would like to see from Ja'Cory Barney. I'm excited for him to hopefully take the reins as the main punt returner, but also that I think he's going to see the field. They've talked about him way too much. We've saw great things in the spring game. He's got the speed. And he's got the talent. He's a 3 or 4 star wherever you look at him. But man,
this is where he could be Wan'Dale Robinson. By week 4, he could be like, oh my word, he needs to be on the field.
You got to put him on the field every snap.
Yeah, get him the ball. And that could be this could legitimately be one of those situations. So keep the closest eye on Ja'Cory Barney, and whenever he's on the field, look for ways in which we're developing, or how Raiola's looking towards him, or basically how the coaches are trusting Barney early on. And if they're showing trust in him and designing stuff for him early on, screens or sweeps, something like that, that means that they think that he's going to be the truth.
Yeah, he might just be one of those guys. Man, just look at us. Look at these top 10 players. I can't wait to see them play. Our defense is loaded. We got lots of young talent. We feel like Matt Rule is really building the foundation, that's actually not going to take 5 years and never amount to anything. Right. But I feel like this year, again, we've really turned the corner. And I feel like that's just the case with the amount of guys we have to talk about because the amount who have played. Again,
Sure.
he's built so much more depth. He's not just relying on his one dudes, but he's building a full program. And I mean, I just can't wait.
Yeah, the top 10 players video is a lot more interesting this year than it was under Scott Frost. That's for sure. Because there was a lack of names for a little while in that range.
After like 4, you're like, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a fun one. So long story short, guys, thanks for watching. Obviously, it is Husker game week. So drop a comment down below with your predictions for the UTEP game and your hype and the player you think is most likely to be the biggest breakout or the top player in Nebraska by the end of the year. We appreciate you guys, but as always, I'm Josh. That's Caleb. This has been Big Red Homestead, and guys, we'll see you next time. Go Big Red.